Now, I want to ask, this is a really unfair question, but I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you could interview any one person that was a huge part of the Cold War, living or dead, who would be your number one? You get an hour with them. And I'll even say this, if you choose somebody like Stalin, he has to answer truthfully for that entire hour.
Living or dead? God, dear.
I know this is unfair.
The obvious ones would be for Kennedy or Stalin or something like that. But I'd probably want to go for Yuri Andropov, who was the Soviet leader after Brezhnev, because I'd want to ask him about this paranoia that he had that the US were actually going to launch a first strike on the Soviet Union. I did an episode on this. Basically, the sort of year where this gets really dangerous is 1983. And the Soviets have an intelligence operation to look for signs that the US is going to attack them. There's various things that happen in 1983, and the sort of climax of it is a NATO exercise called Able Archer, which is a practice for the launch of nuclear weapons against the Soviet Union. During that exercise, the Soviets went to a higher degree of readiness that had been seen before. They had planes loaded with weaponry at the end of runways ready to attack NATO. And there's NSA documents to show that this was the intelligence that was showing at the time. And I'd like to understand his thinking and where he was going with that. And also his views on Gorbachev, because Gorbachev was Andropov's protege. He was the guy that Andropov wanted to succeed him. How did he think Gorbachev was going to develop the USSR? I'm sure Andropov had no idea he was effectively going to dismantle it. But I guess that's the person. If I had a little bit more thought about it, I may go for somebody else. I mean, as far as living people who are still around, Gorbachev would have been top of my list. I think now I would love to speak to Lech Walesa, the leader of the Free Trade Union Solidarity, that really started the unraveling of the Iron Curtain in 1980 when they were legalized by the Polish communist government because they knew that they had to work with them in some shape or form. And then in 81, martial law was declared and Solidarity had to go underground. But eventually the Polish communist government realized we've got to work with these guys. And there were free or semi-free elections for the first time in Poland in 1989. Obviously in 1989, the whole of the Warsaw Pact, sort of communist governments in the Warsaw Pact, fell apart and disappeared. So there's hope, because I have a number of financial supporters who support the podcast. And one of them is sort of like teasing me to say he knows somebody who knows Lech Walesa, and he may be able to do something there. I'm not raising my hopes, but that would be worth the plane trip to Poland to do that face to face.